तो आई नहीं ट्रेन ऐसे दे देंगे आज आई तो जिंदगी में ऐसी दिया गिर गया और आप उनको बोलो ना सीनियर मेंबर्स की एडमिट के लिए फीस हो रही देखो पीछे चले जाओ ऊपर चले जाओ क्या हो गया एकदम में थोड़ा सा तो डिस्कस करना मेरे को तो बैठा
आपको दे देगा जगह
उनके ही नहीं लगे
इनके पास भी नहीं है ट्रे प्लास्टिक के
अरे नहीं चाहिए भाई मैंने कर दिया
वही
हर चीज़ देखना
प्लास्टिक
हाँ मतलब
आगे जब साहब माइक नंबर दो लोग
आ तो गए पठानगढ़ साहब।
पठानगढ़ साहब को बुलाओ जरा। कोई जगह बनवाओ ना।
कोई टेलीकास्ट नहीं हो पाएगा, कोई नहीं जाएगा, कौन जाएगा?
कोई नहीं होगा। सही कह रहे सर,
खड़े हो जाएंगे पर नहीं जाएंगे।
टेलीकास्ट नहीं हो पाएगा।
I request Mr. Kapil Sibal, President, Supreme Court Bar Association, and Ms. Rachna Shrivastava, Vice President, Supreme Court Bar Association, to kindly escort Honorable Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud, Honorable the Chief Justice of India, along with Honorable Mr. Justice Sanjeev Khanna, Honorable the Chief Justice of India Designate, along with Mr. R. Venkat Ramani, Learned Attorney General for India, to the dais. Right. I request Ms. Jyoti Parashar, Member Executive, Supreme Court Bar Association, to present a bouquet of flowers to Honorable Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud, Honorable Chief Justice of India. I also request Ms. Nandini Gupta, Member Executive, Supreme Court Bar Association, to present a bouquet of flowers to Honorable Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud, Honorable the Chief Justice of India. I request Mr. Sushil Tomar, Joint Secretary, Supreme Court Bar Association, to present a bouquet of flowers to Honorable Mr. Justice Sanjeev Khanna, Honorable the Chief Justice of India Designate. I request Mr. Mukesh Kumar Singh, Member Executive, Supreme Court Bar Association, to present a bouquet of flowers to Honorable Mr. Justice Sanjeev Khanna, Honorable the Chief Justice of India Designate. I request Mr. Anil C. Nishani, Member Executive, Supreme Court Bar Association, to present a bouquet of flowers to Mr. R. Venkat Ramani, Learned Attorney General for India. I request Ms. Rachna Gandhi, Member Executive, Supreme Court Bar Association, to present a bouquet of flowers to Ms. Kalpana Das, wife of Honorable Dr. Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, Honorable the Chief Justice of India. I request Ms. Rachna Shrivastava, Vice President, Supreme Court Bar Association, to kindly give her welcome address.
Thank you, Vikrant. Namaskar. Good evening to all. Honorable Dr. Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, the Chief Justice of India, Honorable Justice Sanjeev Khanna, Chief Justice Designate, Honorable Judges of the Supreme Court, former Judges of the Supreme Court, Shri R. Venkatramani, Learned Attorney General for India, Shri Kapil Sibal, President SCBA, Shri Vikrant Yadav, Honorary Secretary SCBA, Honorable Judges of the High Court, past and present, Shri Tushar Mehta, Learned Solicitor General of India, Additional Solicitors General of India, better half and the best friend of Justice Chandrachud, Ms. Kalpana Das, sons Abhinav, Chintan, and their spouses, adorable daughters, I'm sure they are watching live streaming of this function, Priyanka and Mahi, sister Mrs. Nirmala Kulkarni and her spouse, other family members, Mr. Apurv Sharma, Vice Chairman, Bar Council of India, senior advocates, office bearers, members of the Executive Committee of SCBA, Shri Vipin Nair, President, Shri Amit Sharma, Vice President, Shri Nikhil Jain, Secretary, and other office bearers and members of the Executive Committee of SCORA, Learned Secretary General, other registrars of the Supreme Court of India, presidents and secretaries and office bearers of Executive Committee of various bar associations, my colleagues at the bar, my junior colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I extend a very heartfelt, warm welcome to you all. It is with a profound sense of admiration and respect that we gather here today to bid farewell to one of the most remarkable and visionary jurists in the history of Indian judiciary, Honorable Chief Justice of India, Dr. Dhananjay Y. Chandrachud. As Justice Chandrachud's tenure comes to a close, it is only fitting that we reflect on his extraordinary contributions to the Supreme Court of India, to the protection of constitutional values, and the advancement of justice and equality in our country. Justice Chandrachud's journey in the judiciary has been nothing short of illustrious, marked by a series of path-breaking judgments and a deep commitment to upholding the values enshrined in the Constitution. Born into a family with a rich legal tradition, his father, the legendary Justice Y.V. Chandrachud, who served as the longest-serving Chief Justice of India, it is fair to say that Justice Chandrachud has carried forward that legacy with grace, wisdom, and a sense of duty that has earned him immense respect from all quarters. Justice Chandrachud has been an alumnus of St. Columba's School and later of St. Stephen's College, followed by Faculty of Law, Delhi University. He did his LLM from Harvard University in 1983, followed by a doctorate in juridical sciences in 1986. He had a short stint in a law firm in US, but then soon returned to India to practice in Bombay High Court and the Supreme Court. He was designated as a senior advocate by the Bombay High Court in the year 1998. Same year, he was appointed as Additional Solicitor General of India till 2000, when he was elevated to the bench as an additional judge of the Bombay High Court. After serving as Bombay High Court judge for over 13 years, Justice Chandrachud was appointed as Chief Justice of Allahabad High Court on 31st October 2013. In the year 2016, Justice Chandrachud was appointed as Judge of the Supreme Court, and later on 9th November 2022, he assumed the office as the 50th Chief Justice of India. Justice Chandrachud's tenure on the bench has been marked by his deep commitment to the Constitution, the protection of individual liberties, and his unyielding belief in the rule of law. His judgments, spanning a wide array of issues, have not only shaped the course of legal thought, but also redefined the relationship between the state and the individual, always with an eye towards justice and equality. They say, behind every great judge is a great judgment. But behind Justice Chandrachud, there is a mountain of great judgments. His decisions have resonated far beyond the courtrooms, impacting lives in the most profound ways. And let us not forget, he's done it with such a finesse that even when he disagrees with you, you have the courtroom thinking, well, maybe I'll just disagree with myself. He has always believed that the Constitution is a living document, evolving with the times, and his contributions have kept that belief alive in the courtrooms. Justice Chandrachud has been part of 23 constitutional benches, addressing some of the most pressing and complex legal issues that confronted the nation. His opinions in these cases have not only helped clarify the contours of law, but have also had a profound and lasting impact on the rights and freedom of Indian citizens, like the landmark judgments on the electoral bond scheme, Ram Janmabhoomi, privacy, decriminalization of homosexuality, Sabrimala, safe-sex marriage, revocation of special status of Jammu and Kashmir, to name a few. He has always been a strong advocate for expanding the scope of personal liberty, especially under Article 21, which guarantees the right to life and personal freedom. In the landmark case, Justice P.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India, Justice Chandrachud authored the judgment that recognized the right to privacy as a fundamental right under the Indian Constitution. This judgment was not only a watershed moment in the Indian jurisprudence, but also underscored the importance of individual autonomy in the face of state power. Another pivotal moment in Justice Chandrachud's career was his role in decriminalization of Section 337 of Indian Penal Code in the Navtesh Singh versus Union of India case. This historic ruling, which struck down the colonial era law that criminalized consensual same-sex relationship, reaffirmed the value of dignity, equality, and personal freedom. Justice Chandrachud's opinion in this case was not just a legal pronouncement, it was a clarion call for a more inclusive and compassionate society, one that respects the rights of individuals to choose their paths free from discrimination or prejudice. In Sabarimala case, Justice Chandrachud delivered a powerful opinion that reaffirmed the right of women to enter places of worship, challenging age-old patriarchal norms and customs that perpetuate inequality. His opinion in this case was rooted in the constitutional principle of equality and sought to break the shackles of discrimination that women have historically faced in both religious and social context. He has authored 2 decisions in the realm of gender justice in the armed forces in the country. In Babita Punia's case, the government was directed to consider all women officers in the army appointed to the Short Service Commission for the grant of permanent commission on an equal basis with their male counterparts. Shortly thereafter, similar relief was granted to the women in the Indian Navy. Justice Chandrachud has always been known for his intellectual rigor, his eloquence, and his deep, empathetic approach to individuals who stand before the court. He has approached every case, no matter how small or large, with the same sense of responsibility and care, always mindful of the impact that his judgment would have on the lives of people. His ability to blend legal precision with a profound understanding of human rights and dignity is a testament to his unparalleled judicial acumen. As they say, when you rise to such heights, it is easy to forget your feet are on the ground. But Justice Chandrachud has always stayed grounded. He has remained humble, thoughtful, and endlessly curious. He has continued to believe in the principles of fairness, equity, and justice, even in the face of challenges. His judgments are a testament to this unwavering commitment. Beyond his significant contributions to the field of constitutional law, Justice Chandrachud has been at the forefront of the reforms aimed at improving the efficiency, transparency, accessibility of the judiciary. His commitment to leveraging technology in the judicial process is evident in his efforts to digitize court records, promote e-filing, virtual hearings, particularly during the unprecedented challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic. Under his leadership, the judiciary embraced technology-driven solutions, ensuring that justice was delivered in the most trying times. Justice Chandrachud, your journey in the legal world has continually pushed boundaries. You have always looked beyond the obvious and discovered new dimensions in law. Your journey has inspired so many, and you leave behind not just a court, but a caravan of ideas, change, and a future that holds hope for all of us. In conclusion, we express our deepest gratitude for your unwavering dedication to the rule of law, for your courage in standing up for what is right, and for your tireless efforts to protect the rights and liberties of every individual. You have left an indelible mark on the judiciary. We wish you the very best in your future endeavors and hope that you will continue to contribute to the cause of justice in new and meaningful ways. I once again extend a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the entire Executive Committee of SCBA. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I request Mr. Kapil Sibal, President, Supreme Court Bar Association, to kindly address the August gathering.
Chief Justice of India, Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud, Chief Justice Designate, Justice Sanjeev Khanna, Judges of the Supreme Court of India, family members of Justice Chandrachud, Attorney General for India, Solicitor General for India, Rachna ji, Vikrant ji, members of the Executive Committee, senior advocates, my brothers in the fraternity, brothers and sisters in the fraternity. What do I say? When you have to judge the journey of any judge, what is the benchmark on the basis of which you judge that journey? We can criticize any judge because there is nothing called perfection in life. There is also nothing called eternal truth. Perfection is relative, truth is relative. And you have to judge the man and the judge on the basis of the times in which we live. So when we will write about Justice Chandrachud, we will discuss his judgments, his manner, his simplicity, his affability, his patience, all attributes of one of the greatest judges of this country. Many of you don't know that I have had the privilege of arguing before his father, who was the judge of the Supreme Court of India for 17 years. He became a judge in 1978, and he left office in 1985. And he was Chief Justice for 7 years and 14 days. Now, Chief Justice Chandrachud had to match up to the qualities and the achievements of his father. I must say you outpaced him, Judge. You truly outpaced him. Now, when I started talking about the values of a judge and how do you measure a judge and his contribution to the legal fraternity? Well, actually, you look at the Constitution. What's the most important attribute of a human being? The most important attribute: life and liberty. Most important attributes. No person can be deprived of his life or liberty, save in accordance with procedure established by law. And the law is declared by the Supreme Court, sometimes wrongly, sometimes rightly. But you judge the man and the judge on the basis of that yardstick. How often, how passionate, how committed he was to life and to liberty. The other yardstick on which you judge a person is, did he further the cause of equality before the law? Now, equality before the law is inequalities of the state which permeate into society and ultimately land up in court, and solutions found by the judge to ensure that to ensure that equality, to the extent it can be protected, is protected. Because there is no such thing as perfect equality either. So you move in an imperfect world, in an imperfect court, and you judge the judge by how often he has moved towards perfection. To defend life, to defend liberty, and to serve the cause of equality. Sir, that's the yardstick on which we will remember you. And I don't want this to be a very boring long lecture, so I'll just sort of encapsulate my thoughts, and I've given you in a sense, of what I think. Because the one thing that we must note is that the court is not built from the walls of the courtroom or the arches of its buildings, by the work its judges do to fulfill their constitutional duties. Ultimately, The legacy of any judge is measured by how he has sought to safeguard citizens' rights. And in that regard, it is beyond all doubt that Chief Justice Chandrachud has rendered some phenomenal judgments. Your tenure was deeply rich, generative, bringing with it the development of a vast landscape of law, thereby impacting the future course of the justice delivery system. Through your judgments, you demonstrated a willingness to chart unknown waters and to reflect that this Chandrachud has perhaps exceeded the legacy of his father, who was the longest-standing Chief Justice of India. For the issues of today bring a complexity that is far greater than it was in the past. I remember when I started practicing this court, there were only 4 courts. Court number 5 was the registrar, where the registrar used to sit. And there was no complexity in the kind of matters that came before the court. But the world has changed. In fact, just the other day, and I can share it with you, and these are challenges that our judges will have to meet in times to come. Now we have technology even moving forward to this extent that you can incubate 3,000 children without a woman getting pregnant. You can incubate them for 9 months. You can find out. You can actually decide what their attributes are going to be, what their IQ is likely to be, how tall they can be. This is technology which has moved forward already. Now, how do you build a society when the march of technology is so oppressive that it will destroy the very dignity of the individual and the independence of the human being? These are challenges that we are going to meet. And that's it. To that extent, those challenges you have already tried to grapple with in the judgments that you have rendered. Take, for example, the privacy judgment. He declared it as a fundamental right under Article 21. But then what did he do as far as Aadhaar is concerned? He gave the minority judgment and said, we cannot allow Aadhaar to enter into the lives of individuals and ultimately control them. Because the state has all the information about us, when we go, where we go, how we go, where we'll reach, what is our destination. All those facts are known to the state. The state has become all too powerful. And the challenge before the court as to how to deal with the power of the state, that's the real challenge before a court, at least the Supreme Court of India. Now, these are the challenges that we'll have to address, and you will have to address as years go by. And the other attribute of Chief Justice was that he was willing to deal with these complex issues. And I dare say that the past Chief Justices would not allow themselves to deal with those issues for years, whether it was 370, or it was same-sex marriage, or it was electoral bonds, or any of those very large issues that actually change the contours of our being. You were willing to take it forward. You were willing to address the issues within the contours of those complexities, and you addressed them with great clarity. And therefore, we must thank you for all that you have done. We may not agree with you. It's not necessary to agree. But at least we must give you and salute you for the fact that you were ready, willing to deal with those complexities. Now, I can go on and on. I can go about pluralism. I can go about secularism, what he has done for that. I can go about the expanding equality through embracing diversity. That's what he has done, expanded equality by embracing diversity. And you are a trailblazer in this regard. The kind of protections of disability rights, of the judgments articulate a strong rights-centric jurisprudence that reinforces the dignity of the individual and firmly places the burden on government and society at large to remove barriers and enable access for persons with disabilities. We all know that there are about 50 to 90 million people in this country who suffer from disabilities. And you were the first Chief Justice to take on the battle, and you took it on with great you braved it out. You were a staunch votary of nothing about us without us. You want to talk about disability rights? Have us there to talk about them. That's the greatness of this great judge. I can just go on and on and on. Caste issues, dismantling gender stereotypes, access to justice and contributions to the legal fraternity. What have you done? You have actually given access to the millions of people in this country who want to watch what our judges are doing, how they are delivering justice. And then one day, I mean, whether it's good or for the bad, there's going to be a forensic audit. There will be. Because if you expose yourself to telecasting, then people are going to start criticizing you. But the fact of the matter is that you took on that challenge. You allowed people to criticize you. What can be braver than that? So finally, let me say, you will be remembered for what you have done and also for what you have not done. You have been a pioneer, a torchbearer, and a groundbreaking innovator. You will be remembered for being one of the most patient judges to have ever adorned this court. You did not allow your temper to get the better of you, and I have never seen another judge with such limitless patience and passion for the law. We will forever think fondly of your rare combination of sagacity, systems thinking, and meticulousness, and your judgments will speak for you after you leave the walls of this hallowed institution. I wish you well. I wish you Godspeed. And let me tell you this. The journey of a lawyer, whether on the bench or at the bar, never ends. Your journey never ends because you have to, your contributions to the law and society will continue. And let me end this with a little poem that I have rendered for you. This is how it goes. I'll give you the thing later. I wish to say right at the start, you're a class apart. I wish to say right at the start, you're a class apart. You set the bar, walk the talk, monitored outcomes like a hawk. Thought of those who had no hope, marginalized and simple folk. Pulsated with the people's will, meandered through the law with skill. Matters which lay dormant for years, you dealt with them unlike your peers. No rancor, with patience and ease, you waded through turbulent seas. The institution has your stamp, unlike others who never planned. With an even hand, you oft displayed ends of justice seldom frayed. Freedom of speech, fraternity, you leave behind a legacy. Judgments whose fragrance will last, revisited notions of the past. Free speech and human dignity, cherished notions of privacy. Alternate means of justice spurred Lok Adalats to be preferred. Arbitrary actions you abhorred, moral values underscored. Batting in the final test, you played your innings with great zest. Leave behind fond memories, you were the constant, gentle breeze. Thank you very much.
I now request Mr. R. Venkatramani, Learned Attorney General for India, to address on this occasion. Later on after memento.
Since a week I was musing, because as the day of retirement of Chief Justice was coming closer. But I see the auditorium packed like this in the evening, as we saw the court packed in the afternoon. I was wondering whether it is a welcome speech or a farewell day. I think in one sense, as far as Chief Justice Chandrachud is concerned, it makes the same sense. But sir, I was musing as to what I can talk today evening, as when that friend Mr. Kapil was talking about, not a mere formality, not a mere talk. It must come from our hearts, something beyond our mind, not mere intellectual things. Because after all, having moved and known the Chief Justice for a fairly long period in the bar, can I call him a one-time friend with whom I had a lot of memories? But a friendship lost once he went onto the bench, but a friendship gained in a different way when he came onto the bench. I was wondering, what do I say? And then each one of us, when you're called upon to speak on occasions like this, you'll find that we try to say many things about the qualities of a human being in different ways as we perceive them differently and we experience them differently. So it is, I thought, let me try to connect all my little reflections of Chief Justice Chandrachud as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 personality all put together. And but then again in the afternoon in the ceremonial court, I was thinking, and well, all these farewell speeches are very good. We have seen SEC reports, SCR report talking about farewell speeches for a long period. And but in essence, what do they convey? I mean, I think they try to convey to this, that this institution composed of human beings and those who are called upon to enter an office of great dignity, relevance, value, and responsibilities. And each one of the honorable judges who come on to this court have done their great contribution in understanding this fundamental relevance of the institution. So, having made these little introductory remarks, let me try to read what I wrote, a small piece, but I suppose all of us would like to hear as much as possible. I should not eat into a time in the evening when Chief Judge Chandrachud would have other things, other greetings, other people waiting for him to greet and say, share their warmth, etc. In 1979, Bob Woodward and Scott Armstrong published The Brethren, about which the Los Angeles Times Book Review said, explosive, the most controversial book on the Supreme Court yet written. In the introduction to the book, they wrote this about the US Supreme Court. For those nearly 200 years, from 1789 onwards, the court has made decisions in absolute secrecy, handing down the judgments in formal written opinions. Only these opinions, final and unreviewable, are published. No American institution has so completely controlled the way it is viewed by the public. The court's deliberative process, the internal debates, the tentative positions taken by the justices, the preliminary votes, the various drafts of written opinions, the negotiations, confrontations, and compromises is hidden from public view, I quote. The Supreme Court of India, I think, has ceased to be hidden from public view in more than one way post-emergency, and increasingly so as we mature in our democracy. The court has seamlessly become part of the political, social, economic, and cultural debates and deliberations. It's no longer a mere small sentinel on the qui-vive. To enter the office of a judge of the Supreme Court in the times when the role of the court as a social and a political institution has changed is a challenge by itself. No issue comes in and goes out of the court without bearing a distinct mark in some measure or the other as an index of the civilizational and justice ethos of the country. To a considerable extent, the high courts have become judicial siblings of the Supreme Court.
As I said, therefore, our contemporary judges constitute a class apart, and all dispute resolutions today are deeply social. While I'm here today to pay my warm tributes to the Honorable the Chief Justice, interlaced with memories of my long association with him in the late 80s, I'm indeed duty-bound to place my very sincere and deep appreciation of the unrewarded toil that all our judges of the Supreme Court are called upon to bear every day. Having said this, as I have very often talked about Simon Lee, that judging judges is a noble dream, and maybe it is not fair that we draw mere portraits of impressions, the only major yardstick by which we evaluate the work and contributions of a judge or the judgments. The varying degrees of warmth, courtesy, grace, and the regard which judges extend to the bar will always remain personal with us. What will continue to remain as part of institutional history is the contribution of the learned judges in shaping democracy and rule of law. We also know that the Supreme Court is neither an oasis nor an isolated, unconnected, or an island unconnected to the rest of the judicial work in the country. The manifold ways through which and by which the Supreme Court has taken upon itself the task of organizing, arranging, planning, and executing the several wings of administration of justice and contributing its functioning and have added to the bulk of the work of the court. A willing Chief Justice and companion judges get engaged. Going back to the book The Brethren, it is observed that about Justice Stewart, who aspired to become a Chief Justice, and how he thought about it, I quote, "The Chief also had the additional course of administering the court and managing the building. In terms of pure lawyering, it was better to be an associate justice. All law, no nonsense. Did he want to be involved in all the tedious little decisions? To oversee committees and groups like the Judicial Conference, which was the board of directors of the federal judiciary and the judges' lobby? No," he concluded. He did not want to be bothered. If he got a job of a chief, he would rarely see his family and even less time to relax. On a deeper level, there were big pluses on a superficial level. On a deeper level, there were not so many. Less law, more bureaucracy, unquote. So it is that we are looking at a Chief Justice who understood the role of both of a judge and that of a Chief Justice as including both law, good deal of law, and bureaucracy, good deal of it, but in a way that blended, that is relevant to the contemporary Indian needs. Before I place my observations on the large number of judicial pronouncements, which have become an indelible part and organic part of our constitutional jurisprudence, I think I would have done less in the farewell speech if I did not talk about the intricate connection with the Chief Justice brought between the adorable value systems as a human being and the complex task to be performed as a judge of this court. Let me look at some of the rare small things the Chief Justice did by humanizing matters relating to the court. For instance, the Supreme Court rules substituting the word Jamadar with supervisor, granting the necessary allowances of female law clerks who work from home, treating the experience of the judicial law clerks as periods spent in the profession for the purpose of the AOR examination, adding a little warmth to the environment of the court by enabling specially abled persons to manage a restaurant, ensuring expansive creche facilities within the premises of the Supreme Court, and providing for the health care of the employees in the legal fraternity within the premises of the Supreme Court, and many such small acts of warmth, grace, and understanding will remain as part of the legal fraternity's diaries and in the memory of the staff of the court, for whom all these little measures meant hugely. And what to say of the Museum of the Court in its modern technology avatar, located in the previous judge's library space. Chief Justice Chandrachud leaves behind him stories of very many happy and joyful minds and hearts, such as women officers in the armed forces, his deep empathy for the disabled sections, who always deserve more, and of course, the members of the higher judiciary, and all the senior designates who now constitute what I may call the rising middle class of the Supreme Court bar. There is always a room and space for equality expansion. All of us know that besides the testing times of COVID and the call of lockdown, etc., coupled with the technological revolutions happening all around the world, the need to convert the court into a modern institution where ease of work for all concerned as partners in effective justice delivery was irresistible. Chief Justice Chandrachud, ably aided by his colleagues in the court, has opened up a new chapter in the history of the Supreme Court by converting the court into a full-fledged technology court. While there are many more things to be done and achieved in this regard, we must unhesitatingly record our deep sense of appreciation of the relentless and single-minded pursuit of the task of converting the court into an e-court of many faces by Chief Justice. The work accomplished in the domain by the Chief Justice will be remembered forever as part of an endeavor altering the functioning phase and the bureaucratic dimensions of access to justice, made real by creatively and imaginatively invoking technology tools is to the credit of Chief Justice. In doing so, he had the assistance of the other honorable judges who sailed along with him in opening up new vistas and visions of access to justice. The idea of taking justice to the doorsteps of those who need to reach the court is thus now firmly entrenched. We'll also remember how very gently but firmly, and so in his very own characteristic persuasive way, the Chief Justice endeavored to bring about a change in the attitudes of the members of the legal fraternity in becoming techno-friendly and moving away from the mass and pile of paper books. I hope very soon both the corridors of the court and the courtrooms will look more modern by being paperless. We will not say that the Chandrachud era with all his companion judges will take the credit for this transition. I must place on record in the course of my travels to certain parts of the world and interaction with both legal fraternity and judicial institutions, I found that the remarkable achievements brought about by the E-Courts Committee under the leadership of the Chief Justice are deeply appreciated and well received as good models for emulation. In one of the farewell speeches, I referred to the American tradition of calling certain eras of the US Supreme Court as the Warren Court or the Burger Court. These were from political and ideological angles. The expression government by judiciary had thus become a popular way of debating US Supreme Court. There is also some debate in political discourse on failures of democracy. The essential functions of politics in democracy is to reconcile inconsistent interests and opinions. As the shifting of authority from the legislature to the courts, even subtly, imperils the capacity of the political process to facilitate compromises between groups of citizens and policy choices. The political process might be characterized by opacity or inadequacy, but even though its results may be intellectually impure, they have to be defended within constitutional limits. I think the Chief Justice comprehended it very clearly. Many of us have gathered perspectives and insights of great relevance towards enriching rule of law and balancing of powers by being engaged in the Chandrachud court. I digress into the above subject only to come back to making the observation that the series of judicial opinions rendered by the bench of Chief Justice, prominently known as the privacy judgment, including the recent judgments expounding cooperative federalism, which called for creative discerning of ideas immanent in the Constitution, makes one think about the next generation of the Supreme Court's engagement in strengthening and enhancing both fundamental rights and functional democracy. In this sense, perhaps, we have just passed through a D.Y. Chandrachud era. While I say this, I am not making any hagiographical statement. I am also alive to the fact that social media has turned into a relay race of decibel heights and sometimes hollow shells. There are classes of those who are cocksure about everything and believe in their infallible wisdom, and there are others whose tones are condescending. Being slow-witted, I do not belong to either of this class. I wish to be an objective student of the constitutional history of this institution, and only from this point of view that I look at the jurisprudential evolution that has happened in the past 1 decade, sharpened out and out into swifter motions in our swifter years after the COVID. The Chief Justice has thus become a cadet during this period and a remarkable cadet. All of us would like to admire the literary flourish of judgments. We have often heard discussions about the judgments of Justice Krishna Iyer and his remarkable use of language to artfully convey a new generation of ideas. Chief Justice Chandrachud too took to writing the judgment with an elan very special to him. It is indeed a pleasure to read his judgment with a new style of book writing brought into judgment writing. The innermost strivings of the human mind, and more particularly when called upon to bear and discharge responsible social tasks beyond a transient value, are special and distinct to each and every one of us. The urge to do as much and achieve as much is nothing wrong when the Chief Justice desires to do so. I suppose all of us in positions of power, authority, and influence need to have these urges in order that our collective contributions to recollect Gandhiji's words, whenever you are in doubt or when the self becomes too much with you, apply the following test. Recall the face of the poorest and the weakest man, woman whom you have seen, and ask yourself if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him or her. I conclude by saying that the Chief Justice kept this talisman in his mind in all his thoughts and deeds. Let us wish him a great and rewarding life ahead. Maybe I can request him to turn into a poet, or like Purandara Dasa's great script, new Sufi generation renderings. Others will wish him other ways. We are going to miss you, all embracing personality and the warmth that you spend.
Thank you, sir. I now request Honorable Mr. Justice Sanjeev Khanna, Honorable Chief Justice of India Designate, to kindly address the occasion.
Dr. Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, the Chief Justice of India, my sister and brother judges, Mr. R. Venkataramani, Attorney General of India, Mr. Kapil Sibal, President, Supreme Court Bar Association, Ms. Rachna Srivastava, Vice President, Mr. Vikrant Yadav, Honorary Secretary, members of the Bar, ladies and gentlemen. When a towering tree in the forest of justice steps back, the birds pause their song, the winds moves differently. Other trees shift and adjust to fill the void. But the forest will never be quite the same again. From Monday, we'll feel the change deeply. An emptiness will resonate through the sandstone pillars of this court. A quiet echo within the hearts of the members of the bar and the bench alike. The words, how we truly use the words to summarize contribution of a personality like the Chief. Just yesterday at the Scora farewell, I described 3 extraordinary characteristics of Dr. Justice D.Y. Chandrachud persona. First, I said he is a scholar as much as a jurist who seamlessly juggles between monumental judgments, all at the same time embodies calm and composed demeanor, both in the court and in life. 38 constitutional bench judgments, including 2 just pronounced today. This is a record which will remain unbroken. Another feat that will be difficult to emulate is our Chief's ability to address audiences on diverse subjects. During one of the conversations I had with him, he said that it was his 3rd speech on the same day. The Chief, you are not only an eloquent orator, but you equally have command and mastery over the written word. He possesses a rare ability to bridge traditional wisdom with contemporary thought into a seamless connectivity with old principles and new innovations of legal philosophy. This makes him more a scholar and also a true judge. In the words of Lasky, he has full sense of seamless web of life. He is a statesman, he is a jurist, he is a thinker and a lawyer. Secondly, I spoke about his self-discipline and unwavering work ethics. This to me is not only visible in the courtroom conduct, but also in his personal life. For example, at the age of 64, he gave up his favorite dish, a bowl of curd. The third aspect is, as a Chief Justice, he had a mission to improve this court. Under his leadership, several critical institutional developments took flight, from construction of a new chambers to Supreme Court building to establishment of a dedicated war room and staff welfare activities. That apart, as a technology buff, Chief has transformed this court to bring technology and court at the doorsteps of the litigants, be it through live streaming, hybrid hearing, AI translation, or e-filing, making our life and life of millions of people, hundreds of lawyers, so much at ease. Apart from the three, I like to add two more facets to the list. First, I must speak about his profound compassion, a force that drives him to build a just world wherever he walks. Throughout his tenure, he has relentlessly pursued this goal of making this court a sanctuary of inclusivity, accessible to all. Consider, for instance, the creation of Mitti Cafe, a remarkable space run entirely by different abled individuals, or his dedicated reforms to make this court truly accessible, welcoming those who for long have found these spaces daunting or obstructive. Secondly, I must speak about his continuous flow of energy. Somebody has remarked, a person doesn't need brilliance or genius, all he needs is energy. Chief, you clearly combine the three, genius, brilliance, and energy, leaving us to wonder what is the source of your energy. Turning to the personal note, I had never met the chief before I came to this court, or maybe I had met him but never spoken to him. It took us time, but then gradually we gelled with each other. We have discussed, dealt with several issues and problems, but never once did we leave the room feeling that there is a little disquiet or difference. We had our opinions, but nevertheless we found ways and means to deal with them. As the chief prepares to demit the office soon, there will be undoubtedly a vacuum, both in the institution and for someone who had worked and lived with such dedication. Of course, the chief will be missed by us. We'll miss your presence physically, but you'll always be felt. You'll be amongst us as one of us. Behind the brilliant persona of the chief also stands his devoted family, who can now enjoy greater pleasures that he patiently awaits his presence. Luxury morning walks, time to spend with the book without looking at the clock, unhurried conversations. I'm aware that Kalpana Das, children Abhinav, Chintal, the daughters Mahi and Priyanka, sister Nirmal Kulkarni, brother-in-law Dilip Kulkarni, sister-in-law Chitra Das, have been a quiet force behind him. They must be looking forward to the new journey he'll have with him. While Bob Dylan was one of your favorites, I like to borrow a line from Frank Sinatra's song, I Did It My Way. Chief, you truly did it your way.
Thank you, Madan. I humbly request young members of the bar to kindly switch off your mobiles, please. Now I request Honorable Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud, Honorable the Chief Justice of India, to kindly address the august gathering.
A very good evening to everyone here this evening. Honorable Chief Justice of India designate my very dear brother and friend Justice Sanjeev Khanna, distinguished sister and brother judges of the Supreme Court, Mr. R. Venkatramani, the Learned Attorney General for India, Mr. Tushar Mehta, the Solicitor General, Mr. Kapil Sibal, the President of the Supreme Court Bar Association, Ms. Rachna Srivastav, Vice President of SCBA, Vikrant Yadav, the Secretary, and all the office bearers of SCBA, and of course, Skora, Vipin Nair, Amit Sharma, Nikhil Jain, and all the other members, the members of the registry, all the senior and junior lawyers who've come in such large numbers that you have truly left me humbled, my own family. But last not the least, all the former judges, both of the Supreme Court, I can see Indiradi in the audience, of the Allahabad High Court who have come here. My dear friend Pradeep Baghel is here in the audience. Thank you so much for such a great honor. What more can I expect from life? I'll begin with a little story about flowers, because I was thinking that the second bouquet was for Brother Sanjeev, and when the second bouquet came for me, and then there were two bouquets for Brother Sanjeev as well. When I became Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court, on an average, at every bar functions, there would be about 25 to 30 marigold garlands which were placed on your collar. And of course, when I went home, Kalpana would say that, these marigold flowers tend to damage your shirt, and then it's very difficult to get the color off. So I began by telling the president of the Bar Association, I said, ये आप फूल देने का कष्ट ना करें, कितना पैसा खर्च करते हैं आप? So he said, नहीं जी, ऐसा नहीं है, अब इतना प्यार है, सभी का प्यार है. Then I said, but कष्ट आप ना लें इतने फूल देने का. At which point of time he told me the eternal truth. And he said, ये फूल आपके लिए नहीं देते हैं चीफ साहब, ये हमारे लिए देते हैं. थोड़ा सा फोटो वोटो भी हो जाता है आपके साथ. बट सच में आज जो फूल मिले हैं मुझे, ये मैं दिल से मुझे पता चला कि ये फूल मेरे लिए थे. क्योंकि दिल की बातें जो छुपाई नहीं जा सकती. Well, it's a moment today of Thanksgiving. It's a little bit of time for looking back in time. But before that, I would like to thank from the bottom of my heart the Supreme Court Bar Association for organizing this event, and for all the beautiful words which have been said by each one of the speakers who preceded me. Brother Sanjeev Khanna, I'm really touched to the core by what you've said. Thank you so much, Rachna. Thank you, Kapilji, for these beautiful words in the poem. Thank you so much, AG. And thank you, really, all of you, for giving me this great honor together with my family. I don't want to be very long, but it's obviously a time when I must acknowledge those who have played a very critical role in my life. And who more, or who better, to begin with than my own mother. I was a sick child. I was prone to falling sick. My mother must have spent night after night keeping awake to ensure that I get well. And I still remember a little saying or a shloka, whatever you can call it, that she would say, which I was thinking of over the last few days. I must have heard her innumerable times saying, Aushadhi Janavi Toyam Vaidyo Narayano Hari, which meant that Aushad, medicine, is like the Ganges, and Vaidyo Narayano Hari, the doctor, is in the position of Narayan. I never knew what the meaning of that phrase was. I never did. All that I knew was that it was accompanied by the bitter medicine which went into my mouth. She told me when I was born, I was growing up, that I've named you Dhananjay, but the dhan in your Dhananjay is not material wealth. I want you to acquire knowledge. Like most Maharashtrian women, she was very powerful. Ours was a woman-dominated house. My mother dominated everything at home. And I think women from Oriya are in the same pattern. So my lovely spouse, Kalpana, calls all the shots at home, but never messes around with the judgments. We had a household help when I was young. Her name was Bhimabai Bhanu Ghamat. She came from rural Maharashtra, coastal Maharashtra. She was engaged because my mother had contracted typhoid, and she was engaged to be with my mother to give a nursing care for her. And when I was born, I was a late-born child, but not fondled. I was disciplined, but not overly disciplined. I was allowed to live my own childhood without really compelling me to live the dream of my parents. They never tried to live their dreams through me. But Bhimabai Bhanu Ghamat was completely illiterate. In fact, she learned how to write her name when she joined our family, our household. I was so sick, but she really nurtured me. And she taught me so much about life beyond the urban area that I was born into. From her, I realized the truth about our rural households, rural Maharashtra. Most importantly, she made sure that though my father had become a judge just about a year after I was born, that I associated with people, with young friends who belonged to the margins of our society. My best friend always wore 2 pairs of shorts. And the reason why he wore 2 pairs of shorts was not because he had too many, but because he wanted to hide the holes in his shorts. Years later, I read a judgment of the Supreme Court, actually it was penned by my father, about this person who was sentenced to death. And everybody who gave evidence in that case said that he was such a despicable man. He would wear shorts with many holes. But I remembered that story when I was reading that judgment. In so many which ways it reflected the true character of India, at least when I was growing up. But I learned so much from her, and there's rarely a day of my life when I think both my sister and I don't remember her. I'll say just a few words about my father, who was a mentor, a good friend, a dear friend to me. He taught at the Government Law College, and so many of the great doyens of the bar, Fali Nariman, Soli Sorabji, Anil Diwan, Ashok Desai, all of them were his students. He was very disciplined, but he didn't discipline us as children. He thought that we should learn the ideals of discipline looking at the way he led a disciplined life. 2 things which I'd like to share with you, otherwise I can go on forever about a parent, as all of us can. He bought this small house a small flat in Pune. And I asked him, why on earth are you buying a flat in Pune? When are you going to go and stay there? He told me one thing. So I know I'm never going to stay there. But he said, I'm not sure how long I will be with you, but do one thing. Keep this flat until the last day of your tenure as a judge. And I said, why is that? So he says, if you feel that your moral integrity or your intellectual integrity is ever compromised, I want you to know that you have a roof over your head. Never allow yourself to be compromised, either as a lawyer or as a judge, because you have no place of your own. When I was young and I was growing up and I was in Delhi University, everyone you had to do a subsidiary subject, and all my friends were taking either philosophy. Most of them were taking philosophy, which was a subject where you read for one evening and passed. You had to only pass. But my father insisted that I should take up Hindi. Now, I knew only Bombaya Hindi. But he insisted that I took Hindi, and it was a difficult call. But in the course of learning Hindi in college, I came across Mahadevi Verma, Jaishankar Tripathi, Nirala, Ramdhari Singh Dinkar, and so many. Munshi Premchand, Gaban I must have read at least a dozen times. Just I read Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Paton later, which really inspired me. So he inspired me to do Hindi. Almost 30 years later, when I was to go to the Allahabad High Court, I realized how important it was, because very often the advocacy in English would end with, "Please, Your Lordship." And then lawyers would accept me so much better because they realized the frailties of my tongue, of my language, but they felt that I had reached out to them in a language which was close to their heart. And that's one of the lessons which I learned of trying to reach out to people in areas which make a difference to their lives. So the last 24 years of being a judge have been filled with challenges, they've been filled with triumphs, they have been filled with personal tragedies, they've been filled with unlimited personal happiness. But as a judge, what is it that really makes you tick? I'll just tell you a few incidents which have really made me tick in the last so many months. Yes, you write judgments which make a difference to the nation. You write important judgments on constitutional law. And we've got this complexity of law before us now. The Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the Electricity Act, the Competition Act. You just name it and you have new and complex areas of law coming up before us. But truly, what makes us tick as judges is the impact which we have on the lives of common citizens. Just yesterday, last week, Brother Pardiwala, Brother Mishra and I had passed an order allowing for 2 visually challenged candidates to appear at the interview of the Rajasthan Judicial Service Examination. They were ousted on the ground that they were disabled and they didn't meet the benchmark disability requirement. After they appeared for the interview, we were told that they have qualified and they are in the select list. That's what makes us tick. 2 weeks back, an aspiring doctor with myopathy of the lower limbs was told that his disability is more than 88%. And therefore, he was told that he cannot become a doctor. But he had scored so well in the NEET undergraduate examination. 2 medical boards said that he is not worthy of becoming a doctor because his disability is very high, but his mind was brilliant. We got him examined by a 3rd medical board and then passed an interim order that that student must be enrolled to the MBBS this year, and I'm sure that the student will do well. Or what about the student from the IIT Mumbai who was admitted to the IIT Mumbai, a child of a daily wager who was not able to gain admission for the reason that the fee which he had to pay or the documents which he had to upload could not be uploaded within time. We said that he must be given admission. Or a Dalit student who was admitted to the IIT Dhanbad but couldn't conjure up 17,500 rupees to gain admission to IIT Dhanbad. His sister had given him a credit card, but he was not able to operate the credit card. But we gave him admission. What about, we are talking about now, I don't know their names, but I'll give you one more name which all of you know, about Sara Suni, one of the members of your bar, who is she suffers from a hearing and a speech impairment, but who needed a sign language interpreter. And we gave her a sign language interpreter. So these are really things where you realize that a judge makes truly a difference to the lives of people. When you become a judge, the first thing that you come face to face with are your own fears, because as lawyers, we can decide what cases to accept and what cases not to accept. Of course, occasionally judges can recuse, but you can't recuse every evening. As a lawyer can say that, well, I'm busy in a part heard before another bench. You have to take up everything which is dished out into your daily work under the roster prepared by the Chief Justice. And I was confronted with my own fears because I was predominantly a public lawyer, a public law lawyer. And then suddenly I was catapulted into a situation where my first sitting after 11 years as a judge on the division bench was to head the tax bench. I'd done a little bit of tax work when I was Additional Solicitor General of India between 1998 and 2000. But there I was trying to confront my own fears. How am I going to handle a tax bench, learning how to head a division bench for the first time? Or to head the commercial court, to deal, we didn't have commercial courts, but these were what we call the motions court. I had no clue about how to deal with commercial work. But that's when you learn to be humble, because you learn the limits of your own knowledge as a judge and how vast knowledge is, and you realize the importance of the bar in educating you. If we just step back and allow a little bit more time to the member of the bar who's arguing before you, you realize the importance of being patient, because you realize the limits of your own knowledge and the enrichment which you receive as a judge by just allowing different people speak. It may appear to be utterly irrelevant, but in that irrelevance, sometimes you realize that there is some human story which is unfolding before you. As Chief Justice of the Bombay High Court, I learned a great deal from judges from the service judiciary, from the district judiciary who came to the High Court. You know, there is a divide in the High Courts between bar judges and service judges. The bar judges are always regarded as, you know, a cut above everybody else. They go on foreign holidays, which district judges who have come to the High Court cannot do. They have the kind of apparel which district judges do not wear. But I learned from my colleagues who are drawn from the district judiciary what a wealth of experience they had about the law actually in motion, because they had come face to face. They had come face to face with trial actions. They had an understanding about witnesses. They had understanding about what our society is about, because as you go higher and higher into the judiciary, you become separated from and isolated from the real strata of society for whom you are intended to do justice. And I learned so much from, you know, our colleagues who are drawn from the district judiciary. Many of them worked as Registrar Vigilance or Registrar Legal or in different wings of the High Court and then came to the High Court. And to them, I have a great debt of gratitude. As Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court, when I was appointed to the Allahabad High Court, before I was appointed, I was congratulated because I was told that I was becoming Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court. But then this was just my beginning of my insight into the working of the collegium. For some reason, that Delhi High Court appointment never came through, for good or bad or indifferent reasons. Then I was told I was going as Chief Justice to the Madhya Pradesh High Court. And I was delighted because I told Kalpana that we'll be able to travel and see some of the good sites in Madhya Pradesh, and our relatives will be able to see a lot of Madhya Pradesh. But that didn't come true. So we were traveling one evening from our home for an evening out in Mumbai when I got the call from Justice R.M. Lodha, and he said, we are sending you to Allahabad High Court as a Chief Justice. And when I told my wife that I'm going to the Allahabad High Court as a Chief Justice, there was a long silence in the rest of the journey. We ate our meal in absolute silence. But then I came back home and wrote a letter to the Chief Justice of India saying that I am accepting this appointment and I'll be delighted to go to the Allahabad High Court. But that experience in Allahabad changed me forever. It changed my life forever. Growing up in Mumbai, we were fond of going to nice restaurants. As judges, we were service members of clubs like the US Club. US is not United States, but the United Services Club, run by the Army, Navy, and Air Force. When we went to Allahabad, we realized that these appendages of urban life are no longer available in Allahabad. But in that little nest which we made our home, you realized how little you need in life to be happy. We made that, Kalpana and I made that our home, and we gave it our everything. And in the simplicity of Allahabad, the simplicity of the lawyers, the warmth of the judges, who didn't have the artificiality that sophistications in larger cities bring, I learned a great deal of life in the heartland of India, which Uttar Pradesh is. I traveled across the length and breadth of Uttar Pradesh, made great friends on the bench, not off the bench, because as a judge you get isolated off the bench. But Allahabad really taught me such a great amount. It was a court of a sanctioned strength of 160 judges. When Chief Justice Thakur came for the sesquicentennial of the Allahabad High Court, and I introduced him to about 117 judges, which was my complement of judges at that time, he said, "Chief Justice, you have just proved me wrong." He had come from Patna, where there was a celebration going on. And he said, "You've just proved me wrong." And I said, "Chief, why have I proved you wrong?" He says, "I just said that there are so many judges in the Allahabad High Court that even the Chief Justice doesn't know all their names. And you know the name of every one of your colleagues." Well, what I didn't tell him was the secret. And the secret was that I had an album of photographs. And every morning over my morning cup of tea, I would keep one hand on the name and look at the photographs. In about a month or so, I had picked up all the names. But there was even a better way. There was even a better way to understand the names of judges. In the morning over a cup of tea, I would talk to all colleagues. Some colleague would tell me on a Monday morning, "Chief Saab, hum 80 kilometer motorcycle pe gaye the Sunday ko." So I would figure out, I would say, this was the colleague who went 80 kilometers on a motorcycle on a Sunday. And then you fix the name. The more interesting part was when, during the course of the National Judicial Commission hearings before the Supreme Court, judges were not being confirmed. And a batch of my colleagues was due to end their tenure the next day. The file was with President Pranab Mukherjee. And I get a frantic call from my Registrar General asking me, he says, "There's a call from the President's house that we have this judge," I will not name the judge, with an end which says Roman 4. And the President wants to know, why is this judge called Roman 4? What has happened to the first 3? For instance, if it is Dhananjay Chandrachud 4, what has happened to 1, 2, and 3? So we had to go back to the drawing board, find out whether they were still in service or otherwise, because there were multiple judges with the same names. But together with the bar, and how wrong your predilections about the bar can be, I was told that the bar of Allahabad can be very difficult to handle. But my experience about the bar at the Allahabad High Court was exactly to the contrary. It was a wonderfully amicable bar, a very respectful bar. But the one thing which the lawyers in Allahabad taught me is that I didn't have to be taught this in Mumbai, because the lawyers knew me as a lawyer, as a judge. They took me for granted and I took them for granted. But the one thing which I learned in Allahabad was that so long as you are objective with the bar, they accept you for all your foibles. All that you have to do is to lift your pen when you have heard the argument and turn to your steno, and they will say, "Thank you, my lord." They did not push their point beyond a point. So that was the kind of bar which we had in the Allahabad High Court. Ready to support the judiciary, ready to support the judges, extremely supportive of the work which we did, and accepting of the change which we tried to bring about in the bar. And I had some very seasoned colleagues, Justice Vikram Nath is here, so if I had a problem, I would always go to my seasoned colleagues and say, "Yes, strike mita do." And sure as anything else, the strike would be over. Of course, I had my fair share of strikes in Allahabad as well. And sometimes you wonder, was I really responsible for this strike? You know, one thing which I'm sure a lot of you know, that lawyers' strikes really start with one reason, but then they continue to 5 or 6 other reasons which were not the reasons why the strike began. Very often lawyers would come stomping into my chamber at 4 o'clock complaining about something which had happened in the court. So I would order a cup of tea and they said, Chief Saab, ye nahi baat banti hai, aapko kuch karna hai. And I would say, dushmani chai ke saath to nahi hai na. We'd sit down, have a cup of tea, discuss things. And I think these learning lessons which I learned in Allahabad have taken me here as learning lessons for the Supreme Court. So when the members of the Supreme Court Bar Association would come, members of SCORA would come, I knew that I couldn't find solutions to every issue that the SCBA raised or the SCORA raised, but I could certainly give them a patient hearing. In the court, you realize that you cannot cure every injustice which comes into your plate every day as a judge. Some injustices are within the realm of the rule of law. Other injustices are beyond what the rule of law can lead a judge to a solution. Because we are not knight errants, as the Supreme Court once called a very distinguished Chief Justice of the Calcutta High Court. We are not knight errants, we are governed by law. But you realize that the healing in a court lies in your ability to hear. Your healing in court does not lie in your ability to grant relief. Lawyers know where the balance of a matter lies. Most lawyers accept that this is a difficult case. If they succeed, they're happy because probably, the judge blinked a little bit or hadn't read the brief as well as the judge should have. But these are some of the learning lessons of life which I have learned. But there's so much that we have learned from the bar. As a young lawyer, I began my practice in the Supreme Court, but then I went back to Mumbai. It was difficult going from the Supreme Court to Mumbai because in the Supreme Court you heard some of the most seminal constitutional cases every afternoon on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. When I went to Mumbai, my first brief was to mention a case before Justice Sujata Manohar. I asked the solicitor who had given me the brief on how much are you supposed to mark for mentioning a case before the judge. So he said, you mark, it's your first docket. So I said, but tell me, how much do I mark for this docket? He says, well, normally you mark 5 guineas for mentioning a matter, but since this is your first brief, I'll give you 6 guineas. Now, 5 guineas means 15 times 5, which is 75 rupees. I was allowed to mark 96 rupees, which I never really got. The Supreme Court was a completely different ballgame. I remember sitting in the court in the afternoons, hearing brilliance, absolute brilliance, whether it was Fali Nariman, Soli Sorabji. I remember Attorney General K. Parasaran arguing for 2 hours in the afternoon with nothing but the bare text of the Constitution in his hand. He was arguing an issue of legislative competence in the 7th schedule. Absolutely not a scrap of paper, no case, no precedent, just sheer brilliance on the bare text of the Constitution. And that's where we learned, whether it was Mr. R.K. Garg, the redoubtable R.K. Garg. Unfortunately, we lost to an accident. He argued the bearer bonds case, whether it was Ashok Desai, Anil Diwan, my own senior, Mr. Temten Andhyarujana, who a member of the bar said was ramrod straight. For him, nothing but the pursuit of justice justified his existence. When I went to Goa with Mr. Andhyarujana would never stay in a fancy 5-star hotel like many other seniors of his ilk did. We always stayed at the very modest Mandovi across from the High Court because he felt that we are not going to charge the client overly for the appearance. But I learned a great deal of life's lessons from Temten, as we called him. On the very first day that I entered his chamber, I said, "Good morning, sir." And Temten looked at me and said, "There are no sirs in this chamber. You better learn to call me by my first name." So this relationship was a relationship of calling each other by our first names, but obviously a relationship of great respect, of affection, of love. So these are some of the experiences of my life which have changed me and made me the way I am. I just wanted to tell you that some of the changes we have made are in pursuance of my strong belief that sunlight is the best disinfectant. I know in so many which ways I've exposed my own personal life to public knowledge. And when you expose your own life to public knowledge, you expose yourself to criticism, particularly in today's age of social media. But so be it. My shoulders are broad enough to accept all the criticism that we have faced. The bar has responded with tremendous support in all the initiatives which we have taken. My colleagues have responded with tremendous support in all the initiatives which we have taken towards making our courts paperless. The Chief Justice can shout from the rooftops, but if the lawyers don't support the Chief and the colleagues don't support the Chief, nothing can happen. I found when I became a judge of the Supreme Court that this was a Chief Justice-centric court. In the High Courts, it's completely different. The High Court works through committees. The Supreme Court is a Chief Justice-centric court. The registry looks to one person, the Chief Justice. I thought that had to change. I experimented with constituting committees, and my experience was remarkable. The kind of support which I got, whether it was in terms of translation of Supreme Court English judgments into regional languages, whether it was in terms of the work of the NCMS committee on the attempt to reduce arrears, whether it was for designating senior counsel, whether it was for changing the rules or the categorization of cases. The categorization of cases had not been changed since probably 1997. Our colleagues sat through evenings on an end and changed the categorization. I'm not naming all of them because obviously I don't want to embarrass them. And by taking the names of some colleagues, I'll be missing out on other colleagues. But each of my colleagues has worked beyond the call of duty and accepted the work which the Chief Justice has given them. And look at what the net result today is. And with that, I'll be wrapping up. We decided to put the data of all pending cases on the public domain. All cases, whether registered or unregistered. At the time when I took over as the Chief Justice, I found that there were close to 1,500 files which had been stashed up in the cupboard of a registrar. I said, this has to change. Every case which enters the system has to be tagged with a number. Now, I'll give you some figures which will tell you the kind of work which all the colleagues in the Supreme Court have done. Between 9th of November 2022 and 1st of November 2024, 1,11,000 cases were filed. 5,33,000 cases were listed and 1,07,000 cases were disposed of. Now, you've probably read somewhere that, the pendency of the Supreme Court has gone up to 82,000 cases. I want to tell you the raw data and what the truth of the matter is. Before, as I said, 2022, cases which were defective, which were unregistered, were never put on the public domain. They were never accounted for. On 1st of January 2020, 79,500 cases were pending before the Supreme Court, including what we now call as the unregistered or the defective cases. That number on 1st of January 2022 went up to 93,000 cases. On 1st of January 2024, the number has come down to 82,000 cases. So what the 82,000 cases which are pending does not tell you is that this number includes both the registered and the unregistered cases, and the number has decreased in the course of 2 years by over 11,000 cases. But look at the kind of support which the bar has given us by the number of cases you have filed. That shows the sense of faith which you and the public have in us. In 2020, 29,000 cases were filed in the Supreme Court. In 2023, 54,000 cases were filed in the Supreme Court. In 2024, I've taken the figures as of the beginning of this month, and extrapolated them to the end of the year, about 60,000 cases will be filed in the Supreme Court. So the filing has doubled in the course of 2 years before the Supreme Court, from 29 to 60,000 cases. My colleagues, 28,682 regular cases were pending in November 2022. Today, 22,000 regular cases are pending. Why? Because on Wednesdays and Thursdays, every bench of the Supreme Court has put their heads down and disposed of old cases, with your support as a bar. If you asked for adjournments, what would a judge do? But you argued those cases. 21,000 bail cases have been filed over this period of 2 years. 21,358 bail cases have been disposed of by my colleagues. Last but not the least, I owe an eternal debt of gratitude to my collegium for the way we have worked. To Brother Justice Sanjeev Khanna, to Brother Justice Bhushan Gavai, Brother Justice Suryakant, and Brother Justice Rishikesh Roy. We sat through the collegium, sometimes making tough choices, tough decisions. As Mr. Sibal said, you cannot always assure that a human decision is correct, but it at least must be reasoned, it must be spoken to, it must be a decision which is deliberated upon. We never had a difference of opinion. We never left a meeting with a sense of rancor. All meetings were conducted with a sense of humor, with a smile, and some snacks which were thrown in by me as well for good measure. But the important part is that we never lost sight of the fact that we are not here with personal agendas at work. We are here to subserve the interests of the institution. And in subserving the interests of the institution, it is that we have really, in that sense, been able to scale many, many heights. I won't give you all the data on the collegium. Last, may I only say this. I'm sure all of you are aware of the amount that I have received my share of trolling. I'm probably one of the most trolled individuals and judges across the system. I will only say with a shairi, and the shairi is, मुखालिफ से मेरी शख्सियत संवरती है, मुखालिफ से मेरी शख्सियत संवरती है, मैं दुश्मनों का बड़ा एहतिराम करता हूँ. But on a lighter vein, I'm just wondering what will happen from Monday, because all those who trolled me will be rendered unemployed. Last but not the least, that's the last but not the least, a word for the family. A word for my lovely children, Abhinav and Chintan. I keep on telling them that, look, I hardly get to see you. Why don't you come to Delhi? At least come here and argue your cases in the Supreme Court. I'll at least see you once in a month. And they said to me, Dad, we'll do that after. Why should we bring disrepute to your name and our name by coming here when you are a judge? I'm truly blessed. I'm truly blessed to have children who have that ethos. To our little Priyanka and Mahi, who have taught me that there's so much more to life than what we read in the dry pages of newspapers and our briefs, who've really, in that sense, shone the light on what disability really means and how you can aspire to live a dignified life, and your sense of intuition is as important or better than the intuition of any individual. To my sister, Nima and Dilip, and my brother-in-law Dilip, who have come all the way from the US to be here, they're amazing people. They have helped me to stretch the boundaries of my own capabilities by pushing me to do much more than I could have possibly achieved. And not finally, but most importantly, my own spouse, Kalpana. She is a great friend. What can I say? A great friend, my bestest friend, a staunch supporter a fierce protector, sometimes a critic, but I know always without a reason of bias against me in mind, but a staunch protector and great friend to me. She's a person with values. She thinks about issues and believes greatly in issues. Our little Priyanka and Mahi, in particular, Mahi was responsible for my turning vegan. Kalpana turned vegan, and then I turned vegan after her. It's a quest about leading a cruelty-free lifestyle. And Kalpana always reminds me that veganism is not just about being vegan in food, but about being vegan in lifestyle. There's so much that I learn every day from Kalpana. She has instead, in that sense, been a solid source of strength and support to me. When we got married in 2008, Kalpana had extracted one promise from me. She said that I'll not wear any jewelry except that the wedding ring that you give me. She's truly that kind of a woman of character, a woman of strength. Today, as I'm talking to you about all the memories that I've gained in the last 24 years as a judge, I suddenly feel 65 years of age today. I really felt 65 years old when my usher, Rajinder, came and touched my feet. I said, ab to boode ho gaye hain sach mein. My brilliant staff in the court, my court master Sanjay, Gulshan, Chetan, Saroj, my brilliant staff at home, Chetan, Anju, Manish, people who would, Afzal, my redoubtable stenographer from Allahabad, who would wait till 11 o'clock in the night telling me, I would tell him, please go home, and Afzal would say, sir, I'm just comparing what you have written with whether the judgments actually say that. That's the kind of staff that I have had. The registry of the Supreme Court has been a source of enormous strength. I got into the registry district judges who represent the diversity of India, whether it was a person from Jharkhand, somebody from Kerala, somebody from Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Punjab and Haryana, Assam, Orissa. You just name the state and we gave that registry a sense of diversity in terms of inclusion as well. And I've learned so much from my registrars in the Supreme Court. They have worked beyond the call of duty. As the famous quote goes, when our memories outweigh our dreams, we have grown old. I hope I continue dreaming about the smaller things in life from now. Every person who has had a leadership role in an institution tends to feel, after me what? The deluge. And how untrue it is. There's never a deluge. Institutions are resilient and they continue. But I leave the institution of the Supreme Court in the confidence and the steadfast confidence, after having worked with Brother Sanjeev for such a long time, that this court is in solid, stable, and erudite hands of a very from my conversations with him have been over judgments, over cases, but the last conversations after his appointment have been about the administration of the Supreme Court. And sharing his ideas with me and learning about his ideas, I know that the Supreme Court has a bright future ahead. And for all my colleagues on the bench who have given me unstinted support and affection, thank you very much. I said in the court this afternoon that if I've hurt anybody, I can only say, Michhami Dukadam. Thank you.
I now request Mr. Arijit Prasad, Senior Member Executive Supreme Court Bar Association, to read out the message written by Honorable Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud, Honorable the Chief Justice of India, for the members of the bar.
Namaskar, distinguished guests, friends and colleagues. It's my privilege and honor to read out the message of His Lordships, the Honorable the Chief Justice. I quote, "The institution of courts belongs to the litigants and the bar. The judges, only momentarily holders of trust when they come to this institution. The bar is the conscience keeper of the court. The quality and success of the bar translates to the success of the courts as an institution. There are no words which measure up to the invaluable contribution that the bar has made in ensuring that the Supreme Court of India is the most powerful constitution court all over the world. May the majesty of the bar and consequently the court increase with successive generation of virtuous, hardworking and dedicated members of the bar," unquote. I assure His Lordships, with his rich legacy and inspiration, the members of the bar would strive to uphold his expectations and uphold the majesty of the Constitution and the institution. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now request Mr. Kapil Sibal, President of Supreme Court Bar Association, to present his poem just recited to Honorable Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud, Honorable the Chief Justice of India. हाँ अभी करा रहा हूँ, अभी इसके बाद ही करा रहा हूँ। Mr. R. Venkatramani, Learned Attorney General for India, wishes to present a memento to Honorable Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud, Honorable the Chief Justice of India. To present a memento on behalf of Supreme Court Bar Association to Honorable Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud, Honorable the Chief Justice of India, I request Mr. Kapil Sibal, Ms. Rachna Srivastav, Vice President, all other office bearers to kindly join on the dais to present that memento. I request Mr. Anand Sanjay M. Nulli, Senior Member Executive, to kindly give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Vikrant. Ladies and gentlemen, we're deeply grateful to Honorable Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, the Chief Justice of India, for gracefully accepting our invitation Your leadership, wisdom, and unwavering commitment to the legal profession have been a guiding light to all of us. We are immensely grateful for your presence this evening. We are equally privileged to have Madam Kalpana Das, the wife of Chief Justice of India, his two sons, Abhinav Chandrachud and Chintan Chandrachud, and his two daughters, Priyanka and Mahi, along with the other family members whose support and understanding have been instrumental in the remarkable journey of the Chief Justice. We are thankful to all of them for gracing the occasion. It is with great respect that we thank Honorable Mr. Justice Sanjeev Khanna, the Honorable Chief Justice of India designate, for kindly accepting our invitation to preside over the function. Your presence not only honors this event, but also symbolizes the continuity of wisdom, integrity that the Supreme Court stands for. Our heartfelt thanks to all the judges of the Supreme Court and the presence of the former judges of this court. We also acknowledge the presence of the Chief Justices and judges of the High Court for gracing this occasion. We are also grateful to the presence of Mr. R. Venkatramani, the Attorney General of India, to Mr. Tushar Mehta, the Solicitor General of India, and all the other law officers. We also acknowledge the presence of Mr. Apurva Sharma, the Executive Chairman of Bar Council of India, and the other executive members of Bar Council of India. Our sincere thanks to all the senior advocates. We also acknowledge the presence of Mr. Stephen Reyes, International Arbitrator and Mediator. A special gratitude to Mr. P.H. Parekh, our sixth-time President. We also extend our thanks to Mr. Vipin Nair, the President, Amit Sharma, the Vice President, and Nikhil Jain, Honorary Secretary, and all the other executive members of SCORA. Our sincere thanks to the learned Secretary General, the Registrar of the Supreme Court, the Registry, and the Supreme Court staff, without whose seamless coordination, the success of today's function would not have been possible. Our sincere thanks to the Deputy Commissioner of Police of the Supreme Court security personnel and the other staff to ensure the smooth conduct of today's event. Our special thanks to the print and the electronic media for the role in making this event known and accessible to a larger audience, and for the continued collaboration with the legal community. Lastly, I would like to thank all the attendees with their presence, making this occasion truly special. On behalf of the entire Supreme Court Bar Association, I wish the Honorable Chief Justice of India the very best for his future. So may the next chapter in your life be as well crafted as the judgments. Thank you, one and all. I request all the attendees to actually join us for high tea on the ground floor. May I request for a group photograph, sir, with the executive members? Sir, in the front. Nanda?